Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, it's Wisdom of the Sages, your daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, Kaustubha. Welcome to our show. This is our Srimad Bhagavatam show. It's actually a show. And we study the Srimad Bhagavatam every day. The Srimad Bhagavatam was one of the ancient books of yoga and self-realization of India. A lot of books out there on from India. India was pretty impressive. It was the center of learning thousands of years ago when Greece was in its infancy, and it's still there. You just got to know where to look. I think that's true with a lot of things in this world. People don't know where to look, and they overlook a lot of great things. Some things are right in front of their face. So Americans, Westerners, ever since like the 40s, it's become really, there's been like a renaissance in the desires of Westerners in appreciation for like that storehouse of knowledge India has, and people have just been going there as pilgrims and really excavating this stuff. Kaustubha, how are you today? How's your lockdown? How's New York City lockdown going?
Another day of lockdown, another day of the same thing. I got service to do indoors, and I go to the park in the afternoon.
Did you see that text message I sent you last night?
I did. I think that's worth reading.
It was great from one of our, he's Brian from Virginia, who watches on a regular basis. He's usually live, but he hasn't been live for a while. I was wondering what happened to him live. Man, where's that text message? It's right here. You have it available? You can pull it up?
I can probably pull it up.
Here it is. I gotta get all squinty here. Brian says, I've been so thankful for Wisdom of the Sages. It's really been a lifeline for me. I am essential personnel at the hospital. Childcare teacher for doctors, nurses, labs, techs, etc. It's pretty scary knowing that I will come into contact with this thing sooner instead of later, and possibly of being quarantined from my wife and 2 children scares the crap out of me. However, the show gives me a few moments away from all the drama in the middle, from the drama in the middle of the day. Thanks for Wisdom of the Sages, and thanks for the wisdom and time you and Kaustubha put into this. I wish you and your family the best through all of this. There's essential people out there that being quarantined I forget about because we're not going anywhere, but there's essential people, and I'd like to give an appreciation for all these people. While some of us are finding like, well, what do I do with time on my hands? There's some people who are like, what do I do with no time on my hands? How do I like survive? And exposure. That's the whole other thing. It's not just like, okay, you're going to have to work, 24/7. It's like you're going to work 24/7 and be exposed to something that people still don't even understand. So anyway, thanks for Brian and any of our regular listeners, our Zoomers, or
others
out there that are feeling this pinch.
I love the idea of that hearing Bhagavatam is giving him the strength to go through it. He's thanking us, but really we're just presenting the Bhagavatam, and it's really the Bhagavatam that's got that message that can give one the strength to face, challenges like that. So,
and that's sort of what the Bhagavatam is. It's there to sort of give us some like shelter in the storm of the material existence. And you know what? There's always a storm on the horizon. There's always, if there's no like storm politically or so, there's a storm sometimes internally that no one else sees. There's a storm that's going on in our hearts or in our minds. There's a storm. no one gets like a pass from pain in the material world. And sometimes it may not be a pandemic. It might just be your own personal crisis. And the Bhagavatam can be that sort of walking stick that you can use to get through life. And when I say that, someone could say, ha, 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 is exactly what so-called spiritual people do.
It's a crutch.
They use a type of religion as a crutch. No, I said a walking stick. But the thing is,
the difference.
I didn't want to say crutch. Yeah, but the thing is, it's like, yeah, if you got a bum leg, use a walking stick. Here's the deal. It's not a crutch where you're sticking the head in the sand. That's material existence. Material existence is you don't analyze life. You don't really think about who am I? Why am I here? You're not thinking of life is, I mean, let's face it. These concepts of our reversals in life, that life is temporary, that, you know, our own body is temporary. These are topics we're talking about every day. We're talking about them on sunny days, and we're talking about them on pandemic days. This is like business as usual. That's why the joke on the show is every morning sometimes I start off with like a really heavy topic in the morning, and I always stop it by saying, good morning, because sometimes it's not cheery good morning news. You open up the Bhagavatam and you're in some like really critical time in a person's life that's going through some incredible pain, just like we just are reading through with Kunti here in chapter 8. And it's not always cheery news externally, but it's about how to manage really our internal world. And I find that if I can manage my emotions, then no one has to suffer around me, and I don't have to feel that acute pain that I'm going through. So yeah, that's my appreciation for the
Respect
the
to
walking
Brian.
stick, huh?
Yeah, I say big respect to Ryan. Love and respect to Brian, you know.
Brian, yeah.
He goes back to Soul Sacred Sangha.
Yeah, he goes back. He's been here. We did a live from his house one day when I was in Virginia.
All right.
That was great.
Oh, and one other thing I noticed here, Raghu, is that apparently our Zoom thing is kicked in and we're taking over 100 people now.
Okay, now they better. Oh yeah, we have 102 people today. That's our record. We have 102 people.
So that means that if you were trying to get in to the show live before and couldn't get in, you got discouraged. Now it's good. You can make it in. We got up to 500, I think now, right?
Yeah,
we can accommodate up to 500.
And thanks for all the people on Patreon, because we've been trying to upgrade as much as possible, and people have been giving, appreciating, giving us some resources to try to get our stuff together. And I'm slowly getting my things together, but thanks very much, everybody. I appreciate all your support. All right, let's dive in here.
All right. I think we have the very last verse of Kunti's prayers now.
What number is that, Prabhu? I just closed out and I just reopened it.
43.
43.
Canto 1, chapter 8, text 43.
Text 43. So we start with this appreciation to the Bhagavatam itself. Goes like, it's a little ditty, goes like this. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respect to the Supreme Lord, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya, bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki, by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Milatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. If you're listening to on Zoom, feel free to chime in on the chat board. There's a chat board we have here. sometimes I can't look at it because I'm listening to Kaustubha. But we always sort of glance over there. So if you want to make usually it's like a whole cacophony of people writing each other, but welcome to do that. All right, let's dive into this. 43.
43.
O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni. So the Vrishni is Krishna's family lineage. I got it blown up. You are the destroyer of those political parties. This is interesting, which are disturbing elements on this earth. Some people are going, just see, Krishna's a Democrat. And some people are going, just see, Krishna's a Republican. You are the proprietor of transcendental abode, and you descend to relieve the distress of the cows. Just see, Krishna's a vegan. The brahmanas and the devotees. You possess all mystic powers, and you are the preceptor of the entire universe. You are the Almighty God, and I offer you my respectful obeisances. That's Kunti saying that. Yeah. So now the narrator chimes back in. His name's Sutta. Sutta Goswami.
Just the last sentence in this commentary to that verse.
Oh, please.
Yeah, he said, Prabhupada says, the cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees of the Lord are all objects of his special attention because they're very important factors for the general welfare of living beings.
Uh-huh.
They're all helpers out there. Cows, brahmanas, good teachers we need in society, right? Need good cows. You got to take good care of the cows.
Need good cows. Need good teachers.
You need good devotees around. So they get special attention because they help everybody else. All right.
Sutta Goswami said, the Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was as enchanting as his mystic power. Imagine Krishna smiling at you. Anything that is enchanting, here's the purport. Anything that is enchanting in the world is said to be a representation of the Lord.
You know what that's reference to, I believe? What's alluding to? What Bhagavad Gita verse that's alluding to?
All things are just such a spark of my splendor.
Yeah, that's the one. Yad yad vibhudimat satvang shrimat orjitam evava tad eva gavachatvam mamate jongsa sambhavam. 1041. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring, but from a spark of my splendor.
That's 10th chapter or 11th chapter?
That's 10th chapter. That's kind of what leads into 11th chapter, right? Krishna describes how he's present in so many different ways. And then Arjuna's like, show it all to me, and then that's the 11th chapter of the universe.
That's the 10th chapter game we play with our family.
You play the 10th chapter game.
The 10th chapter game. It's a great family game.
Fun for the whole family.
Of men, I am the, we say, of men, I am the, do you know that?
Monarch.
All right, watch everybody. We'll show you what you mean. This is me and Kaustubha playing the 10th chapter.
I hope now I'm on the hot
seat. Of men,
seat.
I am the, okay, of men, I am the
monarch.
Of flowing rivers, I am the
Ganges.
Of immovable things, I am the
Himalaya mountains.
Bridge got Himalayas. That's it. Of movable things. Of mountains, I am
Mount Meru.
Sachi got Meru. Sachi beat you.
Sachi's quick on the draw.
Of the Pandavas, I am
Arjuna.
And of seasons, I am
flower-bearing spring.
The 10th chapter game.
10th chapter game. But it's a nice, this is the way a devotee thinks. And this is the way that a devotee's mind gets, when Prabhupada would talk about samadhi, like in his commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, generally when we use this word samadhi, sometimes it's translated as like trance. And when we think of trance, we think of a state of awareness wherein that state is not disturbed by anything external.
Right.
And usually we think of someone that's like immobile, like isolated and immobile, and they're kind of like sitting in a cave and they've gone into this or whatever, but they're not engaging externally. Srila Prabhupada would write about samadhi in such a way that we could be moving through the world and doing our duties and taking up responsibilities and be in a state of samadhi, in the sense that our mind is always connected to God. And therefore these chapters here and in the 10th, as you were quoting from the 10th chapter and from the 7th chapter, verses that seeing God everywhere and in everything. The verse that we just read spoke about Krishna's smile. We often hear about this smile. Whenever there's a description of Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna, that smile is there. And how enchanting that smile is. It's like, sometimes people are really attractive, like really good looking people, and they smile. And it's like, wow, it's like, their face is so beautiful when they smile. And you can just imagine Krishna's smile, like it just must be the most beautiful sight imaginable when Krishna smiles. And then but whatever we see that's beautiful, then we think that's coming from Krishna's the very source of that beauty, whether it's the beauty in the sunset or the beauty in nature or the beauty in other people, like instead of like looking after this, when we see an attractive person and we think, I want to enjoy them, instead, like the yogi's thinking like, just see Krishna's beauty there.
There's all those beautiful verses in the 7th chapter, starting with Rasohamapsu Kunteya, how Krishna describes himself in the material world, because we don't have necessarily the vision. So all this, I'm the taste of water, I'm the scent of the earth, I am the syllable Om, I'm the light of the sun and the moon.
All that stuff.
I'm the strength of the strong. Anyway.
And that's all coming from, because you see, that's the 7th chapter. In the 6th chapter of the Gita, the Ashtanga Yoga is described a very, very difficult practice of isolation and extreme self-discipline and incredible mental concentration. And Arjuna hears the whole thing and he realizes, I can't do that. I don't have what it takes, Krishna says that's okay. You can still be a yogi. And the highest yogi of all is that yogi that's always meditating on me within. And so the 7th chapter begins to describe, how can you see Krishna everywhere? How can you see him in everything? This is, we had I'm going to post on Patreon the recordings of the class I gave a few days ago, 2 classes, 2 parts, 1 class, on becoming like a sage, like the I forget what I call it now. Sage of steady mind.
Sage of steady mind. Great name.
And saying that there are 3 things that the Gita describes a lot that I just chose. It's like saying, hey, this is what a sage can look like. And one of them is sarvatra samadarshina, to see equally and to see Krishna everywhere. To see God everywhere in everything. That this is that yoga off the mat. It's like, how can I transform my vision? So some people walk down the street and they see this. I'm looking at the same thing and I'm seeing something else. I'm seeing that divine energy and ultimately divine person that's behind it all. And so that's what, that's what Srila Prabhupada's speaking about in this. In that 10th chapter where it says, know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. And then the next verse says, but what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? All the knowledge in the 10th chapter game. With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. And so it begins with a little faith, but then it's a vision that one cultivates, and it becomes clear, what's behind everything, who's behind everything.
That's where we got our record company name from. When we started a record company, and the ashram was called Equal Vision, and it was from that verse.
Pandita Samadarshana.
Pandita Samadarshana.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Next verse. Such a couple old men.
All right.
Thus, accepting the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapur. So Hastinapur is present-day Delhi.
Yeah.
But upon preparing to, and that was the capital of the Pandavas, where the Pandavas lived.
What does Hastinapur mean?
City of Husties, elephants.
Elephants, yeah. They had a
It
lot
means
of
the city had great wealth to have a whole city of where you kept elephants.
It's
a sign of a powerful kingdom.
Yeah, you know, I mentioned a few shows back, I went to this temple that they didn't allow us into in Guruvayur in Kerala.
Yeah.
But they keep like 60 elephants there. And it's one of the temples where they take really good care of the elephants.
Yeah.
So although we couldn't go into the temple, we could go out to the jungle where they care for the elephants and see them all. And then they had the there was one famous devotee elephant. You heard of Keshav the elephant from down there? He's like famous all over Kerala.
I haven't heard of Keshav the elephant.
Keshav the elephant is like, they got posters of him all over the place, everything. He goes back to like the 70s and stuff. He was the main elephant of like the whole group.
He's still alive?
No, he passed away. But after he passed away, they took his tusks, and when you walk in the front door, you pass through the huge tusk. Now it's Padmanabh the elephant. He's popular now.
He's the new elephant in town.
But he was very devoted. There's a lot of stories about the devotion of that elephant. But it is powerful when you see like all the elephants come out all decorated. It's like, yeah, beautiful kingdom
South
we got
Indies.
here.
Yeah. Elephants were like an integral part of the kingdoms.
Yeah.
If you think before, an integral part of living with animals, and living with animals. I'm just thinking about I have a dog. Everybody knows my dog, Gus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my problem with Gus is I never trained him to do anything. And I feel like he has so much potential. Like some dogs like Gus, they're like sniffing dogs. They sniff out like drugs, or they sniff out. He could have been like a top drug dog, like in an airport. He could have been like I don't hunt, but he's like a natural retriever to flush the birds out so the hunter could, or just to do something practical. And I've given him no training. It's almost like not sending a kid to school if they're really intelligent. They waste that intelligence. And I feel like Gus, I never gave him the opportunity. And I think and he wants to do something. As soon as I say, I'm going to go outside, all I got to do is reach for my jacket. And Gus is like, what's up? Where are we going? He wants something to do. He wants
associate with the sheep and the other animals out there. Doesn't he hang out with them? And
he does. He tries to
sheep herding dog.
Tries to mate with the cat. It's on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It's just he doesn't have. We love him. We go take him for walks, and he runs free and meanders about. But I think just like humans, animals like to have significance. They like purpose. Matter of fact, I've heard of one of those drug sniffing dogs in the airport. They retired him, and he suffered of Great Depression.
Yeah.
People need significance in their life, and I think there can be beautiful symbiotic relationships with animals where it's not abusive. Not every relationship has to be an abusive relationship. Just saying.
They take really nice, award-winning care of the elephants in Mayapur.
Award-winning care? Like who gives out awards for that, Kaustubha?
They're well, no, it's important because like a lot of the temple elephants are very poorly cared for in India. And so people get concerned about that. So there is some, I don't know, some organization that monitors it. And in the temple, the elephants in Mayapur, like they get the top rating. They really take good care of them. There's a lady out there, I forget her name now, but I respect her because that's her thing. She just takes care of those elephants.
Care.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting the signal. Move it on. Okay. We're diverting on Text 46. King Yuddhisthira, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced despite instructions by great sages headed by Vyas and Lord Krishna himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all his historical evidence.
Yeah.
What did I miss? He cannot be convinced of what?
Well, he couldn't be convinced that Yuddhisthira at this point is feeling responsible for all the death that took place in this war.
Okay.
And he's going through like severe self, I don't know I don't know if depression is the right word, but he's really down about it and he's feeling responsible for it. And Vyasadeva himself is there, right? Like Vyasa is considered like, he's like the wisest person of all. He's given all of the wisdom of the Vedic literature, and Krishna himself is there, and they're both trying to help Yuddhisthira understand, no, this had to be done. You've done nothing wrong. This is, ultimately it's all for the good. But Yuddhisthira is such a
sensitive,
sensitive person, and we'll read about that more in the next verse, I think. But
he's not reveling in his victory. He's sad. So many people had to die. He tried to avoid the war as much as possible.
Yeah. Let's read the next verse, I think. At
47. King Yuddhisthira, the son of Dharma. So he had a mystical birth. His father is Dharma personified. So Dharma and Kunti had a child, and it was Yuddhisthira. Overwhelmed by the death of his friends, was aggrieved, just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak. It's interesting how that's written, huh? Was aggrieved just like a common materialistic person. Common people don't have like the insight into what's going on. They're sort of above it. There's that it's almost sits ill with your heart, this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
The one where I can't remember the Sanskrit, but it is for one who is wise, they lament neither for the living nor the dead. What is that verse?
No, 2:10, I think.
Yeah, in the second chapter, Krishna is explaining one who is wise laments neither for the living nor the dead. And it makes you think like, well, what are we growing into? Are we growing into this position of being heartless? Is that where we're going with all this? Can I be like, Spock from
Mr. Spock?
Mr. Spock, where I have no feelings, no emotions. I'm just a robot. I'm not going to lament when things are sad. But it's just not see the bigger picture. And Yuddhisthira was trained since childhood in a very broad, deep understanding of life and death, of pleasure and pain, of gain and loss. And then we get focused in on, it's a huge, huge tragedy, nothing like we've even seen in our lifetime, of the deaths of all these leaders and heroes. But he's lamenting, not like a person who's cultured. A cultured person is understanding like this is all moving from divine energy. Krishna is a player in this. Life and death are understandable. These are things that happen every day, and they're losing their bodies only. So this is another way that we also, by studying truth, it's like shining light in a dark room. And we're hoping like some of this deep intelligence rubs off on us. Not that we will be over lamenting for people we love, but we know that there's benevolent forces moving. It's not all random. Things appear random in this world. It's not random. There's benevolent forces pushing us or leading us in directions, uplifting us, or putting a hurdle in our way for our growth. We're not playing the victim anymore. That's not part of our spiritual inheritance we're getting from the Bhagavatam. That victimhood, it doesn't fit anymore. It's like running an old program. We're accepting that we are being led through this, and we're climbing those hurdles now. So this is Yuddhisthira acting like a common person.
Well, but yes, and I love that. And I love that phrase. We're not playing the victim anymore. I think that's something that as a yogi we can all embrace. That, right? There's no space in my mind to wallow in that. There's a couple.
I gave my cup to my daughter hoping she'd refill it with something warm to drink, and she put a stick of incense in it. This isn't an incense holder, my dear. Can you get me something to drink, please? So, no, this is okay. Sorry about that.
So there are a couple lines in this verse that are exceptional in certain ways, or certainly worthy of our taking a look at. In this third line, parak yasyaiva dehasya. It means parak yasya means meant for others, and deha means this body. And he's saying, look what I've done with this body. You know, my body is meant to serve others. You know, that's just that concept. If someone, most of us were trained up and we get conditioned to think my body is meant to be the facility for my enjoyment. And he has a very different concept. His concept is my body is meant to serve others. That's what it's here for. That's its purpose. Right? That consciousness is like, that's the key. You know, and that, you know, a couple of days ago, we're speaking about this, I guess, counterintuitive idea that actually happiness doesn't come from being served, it comes from serving. And if we can learn to think like this, if we can learn to train ourselves, and you know what that makes me think of a little bit too? Is within, say, particularly the yoga community, like the Western yoga community, there's a lot of talk now about self-care, and which wasn't there like even a few years ago, right? It's like, it's kind of really risen up. And it's not that I believe that we have to take care of ourselves. And usually when we're talking about self-care, we're talking about body care, right?
Sure.
Physical care, mental care.
It's a catchphrase too. Self-care.
Yeah.
I get a little, I don't know if I've done specific shows where I get down on the self-care stuff.
Well,
I know that sounds crazy coming from me, because people go overboard with everything in this world. Well, self-care.
Let's talk about it, because you see, to me, I'm all for, you know, it's important that the body and mind be cared for properly. But look at Yuddhisthira's idea, is that why is this self-care there? So that I can use my body in the service of others, right? That I see my body as an instrument, and that it's an instrument meant to serve. So but our problem is that we quickly take that and we go towards material enjoyment, and even if it's sattvic material enjoyment, like, you know, I used to be into doing this or that, but now I'm into self-care, and then I want to relish that self-care, right? So I'm kind of like, I'm trying to draw enjoyment out of these things, and it becomes my goal. And I might even feel myself a little superior to others, that this is how I derive my enjoyment, through whatever it may be. And,
you know, it's a classic American thing. We're extremists in neglect. We've taken care of everybody else. We're completely neglecting ourselves, and therefore we have no love to give. So I pendulum back the other way. I put up all my boundaries, and I'm just into self-care, and I start waving the self-care banner, and there has to be some care. You've got to care for yourself. That's part of your integrity, because it's not your body, and you have to take care of yourself for the benefit of others. If I don't care, how is my family going to benefit if I'm just grumpy and miserable and unhealthy? No one's going to benefit. I can't even give them appropriate love. But we take it to such extremes on the other, and it's all about wellness and self-care, and it's just like, it gets especially in the yoga community, it gets so old so quick. I see Raghunath Swami. What's Raghunath Swami doing right now? He's taking a hot bath with, you know, flower petals in it, and the idea of self-care is you wake up early. That's self-care. You wake up early. You're disciplined. You know, you take care of your body, and you're chanting good japa. You have good meditation time. You have good, real internal You're hearing the Bhagavatam every day. That's real self-care. Of course, you got to take care of your body, but we don't have to pendulum to this other side. And in the same way, we shouldn't pendulum to the side where I'm like killing myself.
Well,
What do you think?
there's well, this is my point, is that when I look into the Western yoga world right now, I hear a ton about self-care. What I don't hear a lot about is self-sacrifice. And when I go to Bhagavatam, I don't hear very much about self-care. I hear a lot about self-sacrifice. Okay,
And
so
Maharaj Yuddhisthira.
I took a mud pack.
What are those isolation tanks called? The flotation devices. Maharaj Yuddhisthira zoned out from the kingdom. He just had while getting a pedicure
and sipping some herbal tea.
and sipping turmeric tea.
So again, I don't want to mock that. There's value in so much of these sciences.
There's a lot of value in self-care in our culture where we just beat the hell out of ourselves and people get into that groove and can't get out of it.
Right. But if we look to the sources of yoga, the texts that are the sources of yogic wisdom, we're going to find that self-care is really understood as preparing me for self-sacrifice, for serving others, for giving. And we find that all the great souls, that they were absorbed in self-sacrifice, that they were working hard to help others. It's through that service that we actually, that there's some qualification for the grace, that we receive, or that let's say, I shouldn't phrase it that way, but phrase it more like that's recognized and appreciated. And that grace, flows there. So like we mentioned that verse by Lord Shiva, that, great souls, they always sacrifice for the benefit of others. It's more about that, and the self-care is important, but let's not get it out of bounds. Let's try to see it with a clear, balanced kind of vision.
Yeah. I think this is important to say, actually.
All right.
Because the idea is we want to sacrifice. I mean, you wake up early on days, I know you go to bed late, and that's a sacrifice, but we're all benefiting from it here. Whenever we do something, a sacrifice for a spiritual purpose, not just benefits us, it benefits all the people around us. And I think great souls, I look at our teacher, Raghunath Swami, we think like, truthfully, there is a lot of self-care, but it's internal self-care as well as diet and things like that. But he's traveling all over the world all the time. We have to actually, Maharaj, you got to slow down a little. You're going to kill yourself. You can't, but he's not thinking like, he's thinking, oh, there's a bunch of people in Italy I have to, that really want me to go there. I really want to serve them. There's a bunch of people in New York. I want to go and serve them. There's a bunch of people in at the Govardhan Eco Village or in Pune. I want to serve them.
There's 25 people that want to talk to me tonight, and I'm going to sit here and make sure every one of them has the opportunity.
Yeah, and does it not in a way of resentful. Like sometimes I have to work, but I'm resentful of that work. Like, oh, no one appreciates me. But if you speak to him, he sets a nice example of, he makes you feel like he has all the time in the world. He's got nothing going on. One of my biggest lamentations in life is I like the fact that I work a lot and I do a lot.
You do it too, Robbie. You work out. I've seen it.
This is the first time I'm not doing anything. It's actually, I'm doing stuff, but I'm doing it at home, and it's a different world for me. But I don't do it with in that same mood that Raghunath Swami does. And that's why when a lot of people call me or have to talk to me, I always get the same, they say before they speak to me, hey, there's just going to be a minute. I know you're really busy. I just want to ask you this one question. And I feel like, man, I must put that out there to the world that I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. Leave me alone. I wish that wasn't my thing. I don't get that mood from Raghunath Swami. I always feel like he's got nothing to do, even though he's got like 20 more meetings right after you.
No, I don't get the mood from you that you've got nothing to do, but I do get the mood that you like that life of service, Raghunath. So.
Let's go on.
Okay.
All right.
Next text.
Next text. King Yuddhisthira said, "Oh my lot." That's an interesting expression. Oh my
That's
lot.
like British, kind of British, I think.
I think that's like a British, my lot in life.
Yeah.
Oh my lot. I am the most sinful man. What do they use for the word sinful? I always pluck out sinful in translations. It's duratmana, one who's very duratma, right? Duratma means
opposite of a Mahatma is a Duratma.
a duratma, making millions of bad choices. You know, sometimes we don't like the word sinful because it has these Christian connotations and it brings up weird things for people. But let's face it, there are a lot of bad choices you can make that complicate your life. So if you have that aversion to that word sin, duratma, person who's they've just made a million bad choices. I'm the biggest duratma. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. This body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many phalanxes of men. A phalanx is a measurement, right? A phalanx is it's an arrangement of soldiers.
Okay.
Phalanx. I've never ever used that word before the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's the purport. This is what a phalanx is.
A solid phalanx.
A solid phalanx.
Not just an ordinary weak ass phalanx. It's like a solid.
What kind of phalanx you got, man? And they call it, there's a Sanskrit word for a particular phalanx. It's called the akshahini. And here's what an akshahini is. This is an interesting measurement. If you study like ancient warfare, here's what it takes to make one akshahini. 21,870 chariots. That's a pretty big army. 21,870 elephants.
Oh.
That's a lot of elephants. 9,650 infantry. 65,000 cavalry. That's called one akshahini.
Oh my God. That's
pretty interesting.
A solid phalanx.
So there was, I think, when the war was fought, it was 11 akshahinis versus Arjuna's 9 akshahinis. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. So they were outnumbered in akshahinis.
Prabhupada, you know, he's blunt about the body here. He says, this body is, after all, meant for others. While there's life in the body, it is meant for the service of others. And when it is dead, it is meant to be eaten by dogs and jackals or maggots.
It is.
Yeah, it's a realistic way of looking at things, right? We become food for the worms when the body.
Not anymore. Now we do something really wonderful with the bodies. We put like toxic chemicals on it and preserve it forever. Actually, it should be. It should be
fertilizer.
It should be organic fertilizer. You could plant trees over it, but instead we put toxic things on it, put it in like fiberglass boxes made of unnatural materials, bury it 11 feet under, 12 feet under.
That could be our last service, right? To
fertilize the earth like every other living being.
Yeah.
I mean, even our this goes back into our composting toilet idea. Even our own feces goes back into the earth naturally. What do? We put it in septic tanks. We create sewers. We try to put chemicals on it to make it detoxified. Every animal goes to, I don't know why I'm going here with this. I guess I'm talking about bodies, but every animal goes to the bathroom in the woods and it fertilizes the earth. But we store our feces. I would love to go to India and just set up composting toilets all over India. That would be a great service.
Or even better,
Africa or these countries where there's no proper sanitation. Because the way we do it, we don't have answers for it. We've created, everybody now is copying our model of sewage, and it's all wrong. It's all toxic. A great book to get is, and this is going to creep you out. I'll write it on the chat board here. It's Humanure. Humanure. I'm going to write it down. This is like a permaculture Bible.
Well, you know, even better yet is what they're doing in the eco village there, the Govardhan eco village, is that whole sewage system that they got set up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's you filter it, you compost it, you put it back into the earth.
And you come out with pure water at the end of it, right?
That's Raghunath Swami. Bridget's saying that's Raghunath Swami's favorite joke, because they a pupaya, because they have this. They take all the, what's it called, the gray water of it, filtered gray water, and use it for watering. Goes through thousands of filters first. Don't worry, and they use it to fertilize.
It's not gray water. It's black water. It's waste.
It's waste water. No, I don't know. Anyway, I don't.
Gray water can be used for use.
Oh yeah, it's not like rainwater. But anyway, it fertilizes incredible fields and forests and plants and the papayas. So he calls them pupayas. Anyway,
Okay.
just thought that was a little bit of a tangent, a pupaya tangent.
Okay.
I have killed many boys, brahmins, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors, and brothers. Though I live millions of years, I will not be. Though I live millions of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all this activities, all this sinful activities. So he's really sort of like killing him, beating himself up for what's happened, even though the whole thing was a plan by Krishna. Every tragedy, there's some divine hand behind it, believe it or not. It's hard to hear that sometimes in our own life or in the history of the world. We get caught up. And this is another thing about the Bhagavatam 2. It takes my vision off of my life as this massive event and puts it in perspective of eternal time. I can do this in the micro way too. I'm sure a lot of us have been through excruciating pain, maybe in a divorce, maybe in a broken heart, maybe in some, sickness. And if you look back at that time in your life, it seemed like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get over this? Or sometimes you can look back through your old journals. If you journal like, wow, I was going through a heavy time. And then you realize, I don't barely even remember that. So even in our own life, we realize that things that seem like the most Himalaic climbs I have to do. Is that a word? Himalaic climbs I have to do. These huge hurdles. When I look back over a few years, it seems like, wow, that even happened. Our life is like that. Sometimes we go through tragedies in history that this is the biggest tragedy ever in the biggest picture of the world, of our lives, of ourselves as eternal beings. This is a very thin rice paper page in an encyclopedia version of all of our ups and downs in the world. And their Bhagavatam teaches this samadhi, or this sameness, or this connection. Don't get high with the high. Don't go low with the low. Stay steady and connected in any condition we're in, because they're going to go up, right? That's part of the change. It's a little cold right now. Guess what? It's going to get warmer, right? It's a little dry right now. It's going to get a little wet, right? In the winter, spring is coming, right? In the summer, autumn's coming. So this is just the seasons of life that we go through. And yoga teaches us, how could I be connected in all the change of seasons? Did I lose everybody here?
No. It was just so beautiful. I'm just thinking about the seasons.
It was like a golf clap.
It was like a song you were singing about the seasons of life, Raghu. It was just
for every season. Dun, dun, dun. All right. There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. Interesting. But this injunction is not applicable to me. right? There's people like kings, or in our culture, there's people who are in the job of protecting, and if they kill somebody, they're not tried by the state. That's part of in their line of duty. Marge Yuddhisthira thought that although he was not actually involved in the administration of the kingdom, which was being carried on well by Duryodhana without harm to the citizens, he caused the killing of so many living beings only for his personal gain. The killing was committed not in the course of administration, but for the sake of self-aggrandizement, and as such, he thought himself responsible for all sins.
You know, we're getting a look into Yuddhisthira's heart, in a sense, and the way that he, you know, we can be inclined to rationalize our decisions, our mistakes, our, you know, the things that we do wrong. Whereas his mindset is the opposite. He's there are different ways out that he could take here, and he's saying that's not applicable to me. And I mean, that could be done in healthy or unhealthy ways, but what I appreciate, what it brings to thought is, to me, what brings to mind to me is the idea that this phrase that rationalization is the intelligence in service of the false ego, right? It said that, you know, in Gita or Bhagavatam describes that the mind is composed of 3 different departments. There's the impulsive part of the mind, the manas. There's the ego, the sense of identity. And there's the intellect, or the sense of discrimination and thought, you know, or reasoning. And often we use that intellectual power that we have to rationalize and to support our false conception of the self. I'm a righteous person, so if I do something wrong, I use my intelligence to rationalize it. You know, so that there's not that dissonance there. But Yuddhisthira he's not prone to that at all. You know, he's prone to look and see his own faults rather than the faults of others.
Is this where we wanted to tell that story about Yuddhisthira?
I don't know if we have time. I can tell it super quick. Was that when Yuddhisthira and Drona were boys? I'm sorry, Yuddhisthira and Duryodhana and all of their brothers were boys. Drona was training them, and that was the idea, that the leaders would go through like training, you know, even from their youth. And one day he told Yuddhisthira, "I want you to go outside today, and by the end of the day, you need to bring back someone who is less qualified than you." And he said to Duryodhana, "I need you to go out today, and by the end of the day, I want you to bring someone back who's more qualified than you." And at the end of the day,
Yuddhisthira got less qualified, and Duryodhana's mission would find someone more qualified.
And at the end of the day, they both came back empty-handed. And they turned to Duryodhana. "So, did you bring someone back?" "You know, I looked and I looked. I just couldn't find anybody more, more qualified than me. I'm the most qualified guy there is. I'm the best."
That was Duryodhana's mood. There's no one better than me.
Without getting too political, we can think of certain leaders that speak like that. You know, I know more than anyone.
It shows the mindset, like, okay, he's trying to see if I'm going to be the best emperor. So I'm going to tell him I went out and looked. No one was better than me, so I'm qualified. I should be the guy.
Now Yuddhisthira comes back and says, I looked, I searched, I was trying to find someone. I thought I found someone, but then I saw, nope. There's nobody actually that is less qualified than me, you know.
Everybody I see has some type of good qualification.
Yeah.
That who am I to think like I'm better than all these people? They're all qualified in so many other ways. It's just the mind of a person practicing bhakti. Yeah. He just saw the good in everybody that he encountered. So he figured, why do I think I'm so qualified? And that's when Drona said, you're the one who's qualified to actually lead the kingdom.
Yes. This
is the type of heart a leader needs, not that you're just oblivious and walking around. Arrogance is not the quality. You can be bold and you can be brave without being arrogant.
Nice. Hey, we've got 2 more verses and we can finish up the chapter.
All right, but we can't because it is time, my friend. That is the sound of the Mayapuris. Wow. 2 more verses. We're going to finish up this chapter tomorrow. Kaustubha, pleasure to be with you. Everybody who joined us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, thank you for being part of our family. Let this be a place to take shelter into when times are tough and when times are completely joyful. If you are quarantined and can't do something, spend some quality time with your family, with yourself, with some sacred literature, with some meditation. For those who are joining us on Zoom, thank you. You're part of our big family. Now that we've gone to over 100, there better be 100 people in the room every day. That's what I'm saying. If you want to reach out to us
today.
We had 102, man. We had 109.
Yeah, I saw 109 at one point.
Woo. So if you want to reach out to us, it's wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. You can write us questions. You have questions for Question Day, which is every Thursday. And thanks for everybody joining us on Patreon. Tomorrow I'm doing a Sweet Baby Krishna class at 8 o'clock. If you're a Patreon member, it's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Thank you for letting us serve you. And thanks for everybody on Zoom joining us late. Now is the most important time of the day. Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radha.